Hi, I'm Simon from PrepYou, and this is actually the first ever gadget review we've done, really because we get asked about a lot of the kit that we use by our students when we're out on the range, and sometimes the mobile phones that we use are no different. And this is a Doogee S90. Who the hell are Doogee, you may ask? Well, Doogee are a Chinese phone manufacturer that have been making some really good budget phones for several years now. They tend to use a lot of components from traditional manufacturers like Samsung, even Sony cameras and all that kind of good stuff. So they tend to produce really, really good Android phones, low cost, basically, which do everything that much higher phones do, and this is no exception. So this is actually my Doogee S90, which I've owned for around about 8 months now. It cost me about €300. I didn't get it when it first came out. I think it was a couple of months old, and I've been using it really happily for all that time. Got through a whole training season with it. It's really, really tough. This is not a case on the phone, the outside housing. This is actually the phone itself, which actually is a little bit bulky, I'm the first to admit. And on the back here we have a really tough plate. It's all sealed in because it is waterproof, dustproof and all that kind of good stuff. And on the back of this phone we've got this weird mounting module which allows us to attach other modules, including night vision, extra batteries, gaming modules. I've only used the battery module and it was a waste of time. It made the phone twice as big and it only seemed to work for about 10 minutes before it ran out of power and I could never charge it, so I just got rid of it. On the actual phone itself, we've got on-off switch here, we've got volume rocker here, we've got a dedicated camera button there, which is pretty cool. On the other side, we have an SOS button, which is also pretty cool, and that's a multi-function key which you can set. We've got a SIM card cover there, and we've got our USB-C charger cover there. And also the phone does work via wireless charging. It's running one of the latest versions of Android, don't ask me which, but one of the very latest, is only 8 months old as I said, and it's really fast and I've had no problems with it whatsoever, until recently, to be honest with you. You might see there's a little nick taken out of it just here, and this was done when in a pub in London about a month ago I was challenged how tough it was by one of those iPhone users without any battery, and I threw it against a wall and it bounced, and it really didn't shatter, and I threw it quite hard over arm, I'd say at about 80% strength. It did bounce off, but it did basically bubble the case on the corner here, and we might see as we're opening an app that there's a little bit of screen discoloration down here. It also appears up here. I've had a couple of black lines appearing up here. Apart from that, its screen has frozen a couple of times since that bang, but all I do to turn it back on and off is just literally turn off the screen and open it up again, and it seems to work fine. The other great thing about this phone, I have to say, was the battery standby time. I'm the first one to admit it's slightly heavier than your average Android or iPhone, but that's because of this big bad boy battery in case on it, and I have never got less than 2.5 days, even with the most heavy use. Maybe on average I'd say 3.5 to 4 days actually between charges, and I'm a fairly heavy phone user. So that's fairly good. We've got a fingerprint reader at the back there as well, which frankly was the other negative on this particular handset. I just basically stopped using it. It was a pain in the backside, so it never did seem to open the phone on the first attempt, so I went back to the pin. Apart from that, front facing camera, rear facing camera, all the bells and whistles you expect. Really happy with it, but it was starting to get a bit slow because I expect a user error in the sense that I launched it against the wall. So that was the S90, really happy with it, but they then recently launched the S95, which I ordered online about a month ago and got onto a waiting list, and obviously got one of the first ones because I was so happy. They sent me a free set of earbuds as well, which was quite sweet of them, and they're actually quite good looking little things. I've just got the latest set of Sony earbuds, so I don't think they're noise cancelling or anything, but they'll be going to somebody for Christmas no doubt. But let's have a look at the actual S95 Pro itself. So straight away on the box we can see it's got 8GB of onboard RAM instead of 6 like the old S90, but still 128GB of hard drive, which, let's face it, is more than enough for most people. And when we open the box, standard offering that you expect, USB-C cable, we've got our charger there, and underneath here we've got our instructions, screen protector, we've got our little tool so we can take out our SIM cards. and I've actually been using this particular device now for, I picked it up on Saturday evening, it's now Monday lunchtime, so about a day and a half, nearly 2 days I suppose. And I never charged it when I took it out the box and put my SIM cards in it, and you might be able to see there we're actually still at 34% battery charge. So this phone looks like it's taken pretty much the same battery out of the S90 and got it in here. It's good long-lasting battery. On the back of the phone, let's get this out of the way. In comparison, you can see that we actually have a 3-lens camera as well as a flash up there, so I think the camera's 48 megapixels, something like that, so big improvement on the previous one. We've still got mounting for modules which don't come as standard, and I've got to admit I'm probably not going to bother buying, but the case itself is much better, much more of a quality feel. Here we've got a lot of sort of cold metal and aluminium. Here it's plastic, rubberized. It feels a lot better. Also, we don't have this garish yellow all over the place, so I do like the all black design, and we still have the tough outer case as well. Again, a little bit more angled at the corners, and as we can see, it's also actually quite a lot thinner. Although the size of the screen is almost identical, the new handset really does feel a lot easier to grip, a lot better in the hand, and it's lighter, so actually feels much more like a modern phone in the sense of you know, something that an iPhone user may pick up and he won't be totally upset with in terms of the weight, especially when you consider how tough it is. So it's got all the same hard-wearing design, if not slightly more efficient design. We've also lost the fingerprint reader off the back, and we've got it on the side here. So I've got to say, it took ages for me to register my thumbprint. My fingerprint went first and that was working fine, and then my thumbprint literally took about 20 attempts, but when I got it there, it's working fine and tends to open the phone first time every time, which is a big improvement on the last one. Just going around the furniture of the phone, so I've got the fingerprint sensor here, which has basically replaced the dedicated camera button, which frankly I didn't use on the previous phone. We've got power on, power off, we've got our volume rocker, we've got SIM card 1 here and SIM card 2 or your SD card there. So if you are needing to use this for secure communications and you've got one of those funky SD cards you can put in to reroute your calls via some mad encrypted system, then you've got that there. We also have our SOS button on the side here, which is been made a little bit smaller, but still is a 3-key multifunction, so you can program that to do anything you want. And actually when we open the phone itself, which I'll do via the pin, we can see that it looks very, very similar because it is the latest version of Android. And if we go to settings and go down to system and about the iPhone, we can see that we are up to, Android version 9. There we go. So everything is as you'd expect with latest Android phone. All the bells and whistles you expect, including its own suite of health apps, which are something I probably wouldn't be using. I'm using the Nova launcher with this one in particular, which allows me to customize most things. And generally, I just can't complain about this phone for the nearly 2 days I've been using it. Having come from this to this, I've got to say I don't really notice the upgrade in the speed for the extra 2 gigabytes of RAM, making it 8. This was fast enough, frankly, but this is really slick. I also believe on this one, I haven't tested it with gloves yet, but it claims to have exactly the same qualities. This is apparently double layer of Gorilla Glass on the actual screen here. So it should be ultra tough and shouldn't shatter at any point unless you are really applying a lot of pressure, probably with a hammer, and then you might actually damage this phone. But in general, I can say that based on the previous model, the S95 is definitely a phone that I would recommend to absolutely anybody, especially if you're working outdoors, if you're working in cold environments where you're going to need to keep gloves on, keep you nice and happy and concentrating. It's got all the features you'd expect. But frankly, is just so cheap. I think this one cost me, and if you click on the link in the comments, it'll take you through to their official site, so you can buy directly off them and get them to ship them in from Hong Kong. And I think this cost me $400 with shipping, which frankly, for the quality of the phone, in terms of the build, in terms of the functionality, in terms of just the durability of this handset, I've got a funny feeling it's going to take a long time for me to find a replacement for this one. So really, Doogee, although nobody's heard of you, guys, we salute you. You're making really good handsets at the moment, and yeah, well done. If you're sensible, you'll go and buy one of these. Anyway, that was our first review. Don't slag us too badly for it. Hopefully you found something interesting there. Post any questions underneath. Cheers, guys.